This is The Other 51. I'm Brian, and this week my guest is Chris Mackowski, an author and professor at St. Bonaventure University. My guest this week is a professor at St. Bonaventure University's Jandoli School of Communication. He's a colleague of mine. He is an author. He is a playwright. He is a former journalist. He's done basically everything we can do in this profession, and I'm proud to call him a colleague and proud to have him on. Chris Mackowski, welcome to The Other 51.
I am delighted to be here, Brian, and the feeling is mutual. What a treat it was to get you snagged onto the faculty to come back. So a real treat for us.
Thank you. It is very interesting being back at your alma mater, your undergrad alma mater, as a full-time professor, especially when a couple of the people on the faculty taught you. But it has been wonderful, and it's been great to be back. And it's interesting because we're colleagues, but we both work remote, so we've been on campus, I think, twice together since I got hired.
Yeah, it's like two ships passing in the night. We sort of poke our heads in each other's office, like, "Hey, dude, hey, dude, hey, dude."
So a lot to get at. I know you've got a new collected book. I mean, you've got a book out every 3 months, which we're going to talk about at some point anyway. But to start off, kind of, how did you get to this spot in your career? Kind of walk me through your career path and how you got from wherever you started to where you are today.
That's a kind of an interesting question, because certainly looking back on it, as the way a historian might, you know how the story ends, but at the time, nothing seems inevitable. And, what you think you have as a map for yourself is not where life ends up taking you. So, the Chris Mackowski of 30 years ago wanted to be a writer. I'd always wanted to be a writer. And then somewhere along the way, I woke up one day and I was like, oh, gosh, I'm a writer. How'd that happen? And it's like, oh, wow, well, that's kind of cool. But really, it was the good old fashioned pay your dues, hard work kind of thing, which maybe sounds elemental, but I'm actually surprised by the number of students that I have these days, and I don't know if this is your experience, who kind of want that instant success. Like maybe they've seen internet celebrities who become instantly famous. So like, oh, that's the way that works. I'm going to go be on ESPN tomorrow. And no, like I had to work hard and, bust my ass to pay my dues, and work my way up.
So what was your first gig as a writer?
I guess the first gig, like when I was in high school, I wrote for one of the local newspapers. And when I was in college, I did a lot of campus media. I was editor of the paper for a couple of years while also doing work for the campus radio station, got a part-time job at the local radio station, did that right after graduation. And so, I had this professional writing that was going on, and then went and did my master's degree at the University of Maine while also then working in a radio station up there. And it was kind of cool. Like radio was one of those things that I just sort of thought I would do for a career. I was good at it. I won a lot of awards. I was newscaster of the year for the state of Maine. And it was one of those things that I didn't love. Like I was good at it, but I didn't love.
Okay.
And so I had the opportunity to go into public relations. And so I did that. And that gave me a lot of media experience with magazine writing and feature writing. And so I just was kind of amassing all of this writing experience along the way. Along with the master's degree, I got an MFA in playwriting, did a lot of work with some community theaters for a long time. That seems like a whole other lifetime ago. Started blogging. One of our colleagues, Denny Wilkins, was part of a community blog that I started blogging with. And so it was just trying a whole bunch of different stuff, always writing. And then the Civil War history sort of is the component of all that really took off and skyrocketed. And I would say the constant, my last maybe 12 years is really, where that's been concentrated.
And that program at Maine, was that in Orono?
Yes, it was.
I've been to Orono several times. I used to cover when I covered Binghamton basketball. They were in the same conference, so I used to make that drive. And I'm gonna say I've never been as cold as I've been in Orono in January. That is a different type of cold. It's like Vermont cold. Like it's It's
it is cold to the bone. Like there was a month I was up there where it never got above zero.
Oh, yeah. So I mean, you mentioned that a lot of threads I want to pull on this, but you mentioned kind of the body of work that you had and the instant gratification, and I find it very interesting. we both teach writers now. I think the instant gratification there, from my perspective, it's one of those things that kind of, I think, feels heightened because of digital and social media. There was always in the 90s, I was like, why am I not at Sports Illustrated when I'm 24? But it's a little less heightened now. A little less heightened, maybe I'm just old and it feels different now. But what I find interesting about your kind of body of work is that it is so varied. Like it does feel like, and I'd love your perspective on this, it does feel like a lot of students now feel like they have to hyper specialize and kind of have that, brand in quotes or reputation and kind of be hyper focused on what they want to do, as opposed to, we had similar kind of paths where you do writing, you do a little bit of broadcast, you do kind of a little bit of everything. And I'm curious if that mix of experiences has that made you, do you think, a better writer?
Oh, for certain, because those writing skills are applicable across all disciplines and all media. You have to know how to write for radio is different than writing for the web or writing for magazine versus writing for newspaper. I mean, there are different styles, but you still have to function. You still have to focus on clarity and conciseness. You have to be interesting. You have to engage your audience and know what they're wanting and needing and expecting, and how to surprise them in those contexts. And so like all those skills, are important. I would say the one skill that maybe doesn't translate in all ways is spelling, because on radio, it didn't matter how it was spelled so long as I could pronounce it correctly.
Right. As long as you get the name phonetic, you're going to need the name phonetically, especially in Maine. Right. I imagine some of the town names up there are very French. So how did the civil? So I'm looking at you. You have the emerging Civil War banner behind you. You've written a lot about the Civil War. How did that kind of become your kind of focal point for a lot of your work?
Yeah, I kind of came into that sideways because when my daughter was 11, she asked if she could start interning at a national battlefield in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and we lived in Western New York at the time, and so we drove down once a month and spent a weekend a month at the park, and the park put us up, and we volunteered, and I was there for her. I didn't really know a whole lot about Civil War stuff, except that she became interested when she was 4, and so. In the intervening 6 or 7 years, I came up to speed on it so I could answer her questions and cultivate her interest. So when she started working at the park, I was like, well, I'll volunteer too. Just like, have me paint some signs or something. And they're like, no, we'll put you at the visitor desk and you can get people oriented. And they gave me training. And then they found out like I was a communications professor and I knew how to write things. So they had me start doing some contract work for them, working on webpage content, and wrote some publications for them. And that's kind of how that all took off. And, as I started writing and publishing more, I was able to, get my name in front of other editors for other publications, and they wanted me to write for them. And so that's how that really spiraled. I caution people all the time because I don't want to, sell a false bill of goods. I'm a writer first, and I happen to write about history.
Okay.
As opposed to saying that I'm a historian.
Why is that distinction important?
I think, for 2 reasons. One, within the discipline, the historians themselves who have got historical training in a formal academic setting are perhaps a little possessive or territorial. And so I don't want to claim that I've had any of the sort of research experience or training that they've had. But I will say, having worked at the particular battlefield that I worked at in Fredericksburg in Spotsylvania, I got as good an education as a public historian working with the historians on the staff there, because you had to learn how to research so that you could give tours. You had to learn how to present, all those sorts of things. And I came with a lot of those skill sets, but doing that within the history context was really important.
So what was it about, or what is it about the Civil War? This might be a weird question, but that's so endlessly fascinating. It is such a well-mined topic and talked about topic, and to continue, it's still obviously generations later, we're still interested in it, finding new stuff about it and talking about it. So from your perspective, kind of along with your daughter's interest, what grabbed you about this time, this war, this era in U.S. history?
For me, I love a good story, and the Civil War itself is a fantastic story, and it's full of lots of fascinating individual stories. I think the problem is many of us were taught history as a bunch of names and dates and places we had to memorize, and you get your index cards out and try to study. And when I discovered that really it's just a really good yarn, that really changed my perspective on it. And so I'm really interested in the Civil War because it's a great story, and to find new engaging ways to tell that story after 160 years, to me, is a fantastic challenge as a writer.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. So I'd love to expand on it. Like the Civil War is, I don't want to say well-worn territory, but there's, people have been writing about it since then. So how do you address that challenge? How do you find something not necessarily new, or new, but how do you figure out ways to take this war that we all know about, however we know about it, and find new ways to interest it? How do you kind of take that challenge on as a writer?
Sure, there are kind of two ways. First of all, there's always new audiences to that old story, because people are being born and aging into an interest in history all the time, and so there are always new audiences coming to the story, and finding ways that are engaging and relevant to a modern audience. It's a lot different than it was in the 1960s during the Civil War centennial, for instance. Audiences just want different sorts of things. So that's one thing. And two, I think the Civil War is still with us in ways that other aspects of our history aren't.
Sure.
If you're curious about that, take a look at the headlines when people start talking about Confederate monuments, and see how quickly people get emotional about that topic. Or talk about slavery as the cause of the war, and there are some people who will vehemently deny that, despite a wealth of documentary primary evidence,
right,
to suggest that yes, it was about slavery. So like, the war is still with us in a very emotional, visceral sort of way.
And kind of building off of that a little bit, like obviously it's an emotional topic and a visceral topic. And how do you kind of find nuance in that? Is there nuance to that? Because you have, there's certainly a side that would say there's a good and there's a wrong. And both sides would probably still believe that they were right and the other side was wrong. Very black and white issue. And of course, the issue of slavery hanging over this. So how do you balance all of those kind of ethical issues and finding stories about this war that is fair and interesting, but also kind of takes all that into account?
That's the great challenge and the great frustration of what I do, because I think we're living in a particularly black and white time right now, and people look at the Civil War in those black and white terms and really sort of inflict present day values on the past. And that makes it really hard to understand the past. Now, if you want to judge the past, fine, but that doesn't do anybody any good if we're trying to actually understand. It's really important to empathize. So to me, I love the fact that there's so much nuance to this story, and it's not black and white. And I love to be devil's advocate, because someone will say, well, blah, 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 blah. And I'll say, well, what do you think about this? And it's not necessarily to disprove them, but just to help them understand that the way we think we know the Civil War probably isn't the way to know the Civil War. There's a lot about the war people think they know, but there's a lot more that they don't know.
All right, so we're going to get to writing in a second, because I have a lot of questions on that. But can I gently push back, and you can devil's advocate me, because I'm curious about something. So the pushback from my personal beliefs would be the Confederacy was fighting to keep black people enslaved and to preserve slavery and the horrors there. So how do you, I don't want to say push back on that, but like if I were to come to bring that as my point of view, how would you kind of, have you considered that to me? Does that make sense?
And first of all, I would agree with you 100% that is the cause of the war, and lots of people at the time would back that up. But you have a lot of people today who'll say that, well, that wasn't it. It was states' rights.
Right.
And then now it's like, well, the state, the right to do what? To own slaves,
Right. Right.
Or, James McPherson, the Pulitzer-winning historian, said that there are many causes of the Civil War, and they're all slavery. So I
That's
think
a good line.
The key is to just help people understand that there's a lot of nuance and a lot of ways you can think about that. So that's, what I try to do is just help them unpack it. But yeah, I mean, the war is about slavery.
Yeah. So, in terms of getting back to writing, uh, confession time. The reason one of the reasons I had you on here was kind of my own therapy session because you are like the most productive human being I think I know. I mean, I think you've written by last count. I checked your Amazon page, like 478 books that you've written / edited, something along those lines. So, along with teaching, along with all the other things that you do in your life. So, we'll go big picture first, then break it down. But how do you do it? How do you do all that?
So I'll give credit to my former colleague, Pat Vecchio, because he once quoted John Lee Hooker, the great blues guitarist. Someone had asked Hooker, why is it you play like you do? And Hooker says, it's in me and it gots to get out. And that's the best explanation I can come up with for why I write. Like, it's in me and it gots to get out. And you're gonna ask my wife, like, I get cranky if I go a couple days without having the chance to sit down and do some writing. It's very much a part of just like what I have to do. I'm compelled. It's a compulsion. I've got to write.
Okay.
And writing emails doesn't count. We all have that kind of administrivia we have to do. Like, I have to sit down and create.
With that, like, what does an ideal writing day look like for you?
And this would probably be the ideal that has gone back for me for 30 years since my first kids were tiny. Is everybody goes to bed at 9 or 9:30, and then I start writing. And if left to my own devices, back in the heyday, I'd go to like 2 or 3 in the morning, and then I would sleep for like 5 hours, and then get up and start my teaching day or something, first class at 10 o'clock or something.
Okay. So you're a late night guy, ideally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is it about that time that works for you?
I'm uninterrupted. It's peaceful. It's quiet. My head has churned all day. And so I finally reached a point where I've warmed up. I do have a tough time, like 10 o'clock in the morning, sitting down and focusing and writing. Like, my head's just not clear enough at that point. I'm not a morning writer at all. Now, back in the days when I was writing under deadline, like the news goes on at 10, you got to be ready. But
right.
That's, and so, I can perform like a trained SEAL on command when necessary. But, to really kind of get the creative juices flowing, I like to settle in at night and go.
Right. And so how many projects are you typically working on at once? I mean, are you like a one book at a time person? Do you have like multiple things that you're juggling at the same time?
Yeah, I wish I was a one book at a time person. But one of the things that I do with Emerging Civil Wars, there are 30 historians that are part of the group, and I serve sort of as traffic manager in a lot of respects. One of our primary very central parts of our mission is that we try to provide a forum for new emerging voices in the field. And so that requires a lot of nurturing, a lot of helping people develop their work, their voices. So I spend a lot of time editing, helping them, with 30 different projects. So they've all got book projects or magazines they're working on or blog posts or stuff. So I spend a lot of time that. So that's why I'm kind of juggling lots of projects at once. And then I try to focus on one single project of my own where I'm writing, and then I might have an editing project that I'm doing with that as well.
How's the editing and that kind of work, and we can broaden this out to teaching writing as well, which you've been doing for a while. How does that improve your writing, or how does that affect your writing?
I think by looking at someone else's and there's the big picture macro editing where you're looking to make sure that there aren't any holes in the manuscript and that things are clear and they've laid things out and they've got a good, interesting story. So, of course, that sharpens my own eye for those things in my own work. And then just there's sort of the micro editing where you're, copy editing or line editing. And, I've become much more fluent with punctuation than I ever thought I would ever be. But that also then helps. Then when I go into the classroom, it's like, I know this punctuation stuff is like eating sawdust. It is boring, but it is so crucial to every single thing we do. Like, if we don't get this down, nothing else makes sense. We got to do it.
So do you want to talk about your most recent book, the one that I think came out, was it last month? You had an edited project came out?
So I'm in the middle of a book series right now. It's the Emerging Civil War 10th Anniversary series. And the blog was founded now 10 and a half years ago. And it was a community blog. A lot of different writers have come and gone. Like I said earlier, there are about 30 of us right now. And so to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the blog, I thought, like, let's get a book together that does the best of. And the publisher's like, no, let's do a series of books that's the best of. And and so the third in that series just came out. It focuses on Ulysses S. Grant and Robert E. Lee as they square off in the spring of '64 in a battle in an area known as the Wilderness, particularly horrific because it catches fire, guys burned to death in the middle of the battle. And what starts there, it changes the nature of the war, and it leads inexorably 11 months later to Lee's surrender at Appomattox Courthouse. And so the book just sort of collects some of the best essays or blog posts that we've done over the last 10 years that touch on that epic struggle.
The that series of books, that sounds like a thing that you agree to, that sounds like a great idea, and then 3 months later you're like, ugh.
Spot on, let me tell you. It has been such a time suck because there are, I think, a total of 7 or 8 books in that'll be in the series, and so I'm working on 4 of them simultaneously right now. So when you asked earlier, like, are you a one project person? Like, oh, I wish I had that luxury, because with so many different contributors to each of these volumes, if I can keep them working, that keeps the ball moving forward. So sure. It's really making sure everyone's working on their updates of their blog posts and adding new material and adding footnotes and things. And so that's it. But I haven't had the chance to do any writing of my own for a couple months because it's just been super intensive.
So what was the most recent, I want to say December, you had a book come out, or was it February? I'm lost with all the books you have come out, your own, but.
So in December, I had a book come out through the University of Tennessee Press called Decisions of Fredericksburg.
Okay.
And then I think it was February, I had a book, an edited collection come out that was The Great What Ifs of the American Civil War. And then this Grant Lee book came out in the middle of March. So it's been kind of a busy week. The book through the University of Tennessee Press was an interesting project that I took on just for the opportunity to work with a different publisher. I've got 2 publishers I've typically worked with, and just to have the opportunity to work with someone else, to give me the experience as a writer to grow and, make sure that I still know how to write for an audience and that I still know how to make an editor happy and all that kind of stuff. That was my main reason for taking on that book. And it was 2 years in the making. For an academic press, it's kind of slow going.
Yeah. So what did you come up with that idea, the Fredericksburg? Did they approach you? How did that come together?
They approached me. It's a series that the press has where they talk about the key decisions of a battle or a campaign. And they had, I think, 3 or 4 books in that series up to that point. And they approached me about doing a couple for that series. I just committed to doing one. And it was a neat way for me to take a look. And this goes back to something you'd asked me earlier. It was a neat way for me to take a look at a topic that I'd written about a lot, that was familiar to me, but the format forced me to look at it in a different way.
Okay.
And so that was also a lot of fun. It was just, let's challenge some of my own assumptions and see what else I can come up with there.
So what is it about Fredericksburg specifically that's drawn you a couple times?
It's funny because there are 4 major battlefields in the area where I live, and it's probably the battle of the 4 that I've written the least about. So in one respect, it was like, well, let me circle around to Fredericksburg again. So here's a chance for me to write a little bit more about it. And it was really when I first started my association with this park, 12 or 13 years ago. Let me think, 16 years ago. Oh my gosh. It was the battle I knew the least about. And so I've probably come the farthest on that battle as well.
Okay. So if you were to give a writer listening to this, also me, one productivity advice, like to increase your output, to increase your productivity as a writer, what would it be?
Ooh, geez, gosh. Drink a lot of caffeine.
I got you there.
Yeah, there. Pay attention to your writing environment more consciously than you probably do.
Okay.
So that a lot of us again, when we're trained to perform on command under deadline, we just have to write wherever we might be at the time. But I'm really particular about paying attention to the environment and your preferences. So are you a night writer? Are you a morning writer? Do you like a lot of light? Do you like it dim? Do you like a soft, comfy couch? Do you like a hard chair? Do you like music in the background? Or do you like silence? Do you have to have a cup of coffee with you? Or does that interrupt you too many times to go to the bathroom? And like think about all those things that surround you as you sit down to write, and create for yourself the conditions that allow you to do your best work.
So what does your writing environment look like? Your perfect one.
Oh, well, and of course, you've poked your head into my office. I like a nice dark cave.
Mm-hmm.
I like lots of stuff crammed into my space. For some reason, that actually helps me focus in on my computer because I like to be surrounded by my stuff. Lots of books, lots of knickknacks. I've got really crazy particular pop culture preferences, and I've got a collection of The Creature of the Black Lagoon in my office,
Yep.
all the crazy stuff that helps kind of speak to my creative side. I love to have it around me, and then I like it dark, and I like to work in the evening, and I've got to have something to drink, and quiet.
Yep.
Gotta have quiet.
Really? Okay. I'm a I have a playlist that I made on Spotify, and it's the artist Moby, the like dance hip hop artist. I have just him because it's kind of like familiar, but not a lot of lyrics, so you're not going to sing along, and it's kind of like that tricks my brain. Like, okay, I'm listening to this. It's writing time when I sit and listen to him. So if also as someone who teaches writing, has taught writing for a long time, what is one thing that a student or a young writer could do today that would improve their writing?
I boil everything down to this little catchphrase: take the time to take the walk. And I talk about the walk as a metaphor for writing. And we walk around the building several times in a class period, and people get tired of it. And it's like, see, but the more you walk, the more you notice, the more time you put in. And so many students in particular think that they can sit down at the computer and start. And you should have that thought out before you ever sit down. Most of the writing happens before you sit down. And then, a lot of them are used to, back in high school, they could bang something out the night before, turn it in. Oh, I love your work. Here's your A. That's not good enough either. Like, have your stuff done a couple days in advance so that you have the chance to revise, let it sit for a couple days, and come back with it with fresh eyes. And so it's all about giving yourself the time to do your best work, because the more time you put into it, the more time you allow yourself, the better your work's going to be. And again, as we've mentioned several times, there's always that idea of like, I'm writing under deadline, I don't have the time. That happens. But a lot of people then fall back. I'm like, oh, well, I'm deadline driven.
Right.
Like, that's BS. I know what it means to be deadline driven. Been there, done that. That's different than, really trying to pay attention to the art of what you're doing.
Well, so much is like you're deadline driven, and we do this in journalism because we have to be. Like the game, like I cover a game at 7, it ends at 10, deadline's at 10:30. I don't have that's a pretty set parameter that I'm working with, as opposed to, well, I'm deadline driven, so this feature that I've been working on for a week, I got to do it the night before or something like that. So
Right.
So I ask every guest I have on this the same question. So I'll ask you, what's the best thing you've read lately?
Best thing I've read lately. Well, I've been reading so much Civil War stuff from other people that when I read for fun, I try to get out of the Civil War. So I'm actually on book 7 of Harry Potter right now. And that's been my project this semester. And I've read it before. I've listened to the audiobooks before. So it's just been fun to revisit Hogwarts.
Are you reading it yourself or with your boy?
Reading it myself.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice.
He's 5, and so we've watched some of the movies, and he's kind of interested in the movies, but there's a lot of plot to those movies too.
Yes. Yeah. The audiobooks, the Harry Potter audiobooks are special. They are so well done.
Extraordinary. Then I think before that, I re-listened to the audiobook version of Cormac McCarthy's The Road, which is a book I come back to all the time. It's my favorite book.
Okay.
I come back to it almost every year. Just fantastic.
I've yet to read that. Why is that your favorite?
I think it spoke to me on a couple different levels. I like post-apocalyptic stuff, but the book is really like a beautiful love story between a father and his son.
Okay.
And they're in literally the harshest of all possible conditions. And the lengths that this father goes through to really be devoted to his son in a world that is literally without hope. And he still keeps trying to help his son keep hope alive. And that book came out shortly or as I was going through my divorce. And so, it really felt at times like I was in this post-apocalyptic world of my own with my son. So there was a lot I could take out of it. But from a writing point of view, I mean, McCarthy is just a fantastic writer. And if you're looking for good punctuation, that book will drive you nuts because it doesn't punctuate. Fantastic book.
Awesome. That's a great note to end on. So, Chris, this has been wonderful. Hope to see you on campus at some point in the next year. But otherwise, thanks for joining us this week.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks for listening to The Other 51. Show notes for this and all of our episodes can be found at sportsmediaguide.com by clicking on the Other 51 tab. If you like the show, please consider giving it a rating and a review, either at Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. It really does help people find the show. Our theme music is by Ellie Moritz.